I will never forget the day my beautiful life became hell, and everything I thought was happiness turned into misery and agony with no one to lean on. For something that wasn't my crime, I was made to pay for it. A sin committed by my mother, yet I was forced to suffer for it. My mother got pregnant for a vampire to bore me a mixed breed of both werewolf and vampire, which she kept a secret to everyone till it was exposed on my 16th birthday. That was a day everything I thought was happiness and love vanished from my eyes into the thin air. I was that beautiful young girl who dreamed of the best out of her life, growing up in the pack just like every other werewolf and having my parents and friends who loved and cared for me so well like a princess. My parents are among the pack hunters, so we were respected and loved for being part of the safety of the pack. But it all came to an end in a blink. Just like a nightmare, the perfect life I thought I had was no more, and it all started on the day that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. It was a day my parents, friends, and I all longed for, and we were all wishing the clock would tick very fast, just so the day would come. My 16th birthday was when I would make my first shift and finally become a complete wolf who would begin training as a hunter for the pack, so it was to be a memorable day for me. If I had known it would turn out so ugly that way, I would have prayed it never came. It turned out to be a horrible nightmare that hunted me like a monster in the night. "Celine, come over here and cut your cake!" My mother squeaked happily at me where I was gisting with my school friends. "Oh, it's time, baby." They all cheered with smiles, come pecking my cheeks as I blushed and grinned in excitement. I went over, and just as I held the knife, I felt the first strange feeling. But it all faded. After cutting the cake with the alpha blessing my new age as they all glimpse at the clock, waiting for it to hit 12 am so, they'd watch me shift. Crowd was gathered for my birthday, and I was lucky to also have the Alpha and the Luna, who decided to honor my parents' invitation. I went over to join my friends as we all began to drink and eat with happiness and smiles on their faces as they enjoyed both the foods and wines to their fill. My friends and schoolmates were all around me, cracking jokes and making sure I laughed out my lungs and enjoyed my day. Just then, I felt the sudden strange sensation in my body again, as if something deep inside me was stirring to life. At first, I ignored it, but it turned into a sharp pain that grew more intense until it became too much to bear, forcing me to scream. My little mind thought I was about to shift into my wolf, which is why I didn't run away. If I had known what I was about to transform into, I would have sped into the dark forest to prevent anyone from finding out, but I was ignorant. Under an unseen force, I stumbled and fell to the ground heavily, writhing in the crushing pain as the snapping of my bones could be heard. The entire hall went into cheers and celebration as they watched me and chirped among themselves happily. "She is about to shift. A new warrior is arising. What color will her fur be?" They all murmured among themselves and were all happy that I was about to become a fully mature werewolf, but we were all wrong. My vision was blurry as I struggled to look at them, and I could see vaguely the huge smiles playing on their faces. Even my parents didn't come to my rescue, as it is the law to allow anyone having their first shift to be left alone to go through the pain once and for all. They all thought I was shifting into my wolf, but soon enough they realized I was becoming something entirely different. I could hear their wild outburst of screams as their eyes all fell on me. The hall went into chaos. Everyone watched in horror as my body began to transform before their eyes. My eyes were turning blood red, my fangs grew long and sharp, and my skin became pale and dead, with my veins pulsing and turning black as they ran through my arms and neck region. I let out a blood-curdling scream as I completed my transformation. Instead of a wolf scent, I was emitting a potent vampire scent. Everyone backed away in shock and pure rage, and I was hearing the faint scream of my mother calling out my name. But then, I was lost in a haze of hunger and confusion. I could feel the darkness swirling inside me, urging me to seek out the one thing that could satisfy my craving. Blood. Instinctively, and like a mad dog, I lashed out at one of my friends, who was also the daughter of a pack hunter like my parent. I was driven by an uncontrollable thirst as I tackled her to the ground, pinning her beneath me. Her screams echoed through the hall and into my ears, yet I couldn't stop as I sank my fangs into her neck, drawing out her lifeblood. For a moment, I was lost in the ecstasy of feeding. I could feel her pulse pounding in my veins, and I drank deeply, savoring every drop. The metallic tang of blood filled my mouth, and I drank more, savoring the rush of power that came with each swallow. But as the last of her life drained away and she went limp, I came back to myself and recoiled in horror at what I had done. I trembled, petrified at the monster I had become, while staring at my best friend's corpse as my body system went back to normal like nothing had happened. "Your daughter is a vampire." The words rolled out of everyone's lips, growls of rage from the alpha tensing the room, and I knew that instant that all that had happened wasn't an illusion, nor was it in my head, but reality. I rose to my feet, weak and shivering as I shook my head, breathing heavily with hot tears streaming down my cheeks. I lifted my face to everyone and saw their once happy and smiling faces all entwisted in shock, rage, and intense resentment. "You are not the real father, then," the beta blurted at my father, and I saw it vividly as his face went pale and tears dropped. He turned to my mother, who stood there mute and lost. "Is it true?" my dad asked her, his voice breaking in and out as tears prickled his eyes. But my mother won't say anything. He was the first to kick her, followed by the beta, who rushed at her and gave her a sharp slap that snapped her face to the side. Then a punch by the alpha landed on her stomach, forcing her to stumble and crash heavily on the wooden table packed with lots of cutlery and a ceramic plate still containing leftover foods, which splattered all over her face and body. She only let out a groan and whimper as tears poured down her face like rivers. She refused to say anything. The family and friends who were here for my birthday became the first to throw things at her, clamoring and shouting for us to be put to death for having connections with the vampires, and that was exactly what happened. They dragged my mother outside, everyone picking rocks to stone her to death. But before they could do that, she did something. "You all will leave my daughter alone as I am paying with my life," my mother shouted, and everyone paused for a second to understand what she meant. "She is from your womb, so she has to die with you. We can't allow curses to stay in our land," the alpha bellowed, his hands ready to give the order for our deaths. My mother rose, badly bruised and staggering, bringing out with a sharp, glistening knife from her pocket. "Under the power of the moon goddess, I, Mara, the mother of Celine, sacrifice my life to prevent anyone from killing her daughter. Anyone who takes her life will bring an eternal curse to this pack," she decreed, her sharp voice cutting through the entire hall, and everyone froze, watching her in shock as she stabbed herself continuously while looking straight at me with compassion and love in her eyes. Lightning and the roar of thunder cracked in as a sign that her oath was received, and a huge smile appeared on her face as she fell on the floor with a loud thud, blood gushing out of her chest. I screeched and rushed to where she lay as I whimpered uncontrollably. Her weak, teary eyes were on me as I held her in my lap. "You have one enemy that you must kill. Don't let her live, or she will be your death." Her low, weak, and fading voice spoke to me, and I flinched in fear as I kept breathing heavily. "Who?" I gasped, reading her lips. "Come closer." I moved my ears to her mouth. "Her name is Diana. Also know that your father is a king, so you should learn to fight back or you will end up like me." "What is the name of my father?" I asked breathlessly, but her hands dropped and her breath seized. She died before she could say anything. I waited for Diana, but I found no one with that name. She told me to learn to fight back, but I was broken and turned into a helpless pup with wolfsbane and silver mixture, a torture initiated by the new Luna, Laura, who the alpha mated to after he lost his mate. A woman whose hatred for me rooted deep into her bone marrow. If only I knew who she really was. Celine's POV. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be buried alive? How terrifying and torturous it could be like, when all your lives and memories come flashing through your eyes and you realize soon enough it will all be over. When your mind starts to wander and you begin to think about all the things you will never get to do again, you start to feel like you're slipping away, and you know that death is inevitable as the pain pierces deeper than you could bear, yet you can't open your mouth to scream. This was the same nightmare I go through once every month, buried under the confinement filled with wolfsbane potion mixed with silver. Being buried in this sizzling chemical as a werewolf was a horrifying experience that can induce a sense of dread in even the bravest souls. It was an ordeal that involved being trapped in a small, confined, transparent box with little to no room to move. The darkness and the silence can be suffocating, and the only thing that can be heard is the sound of one's own breathing. It was an ancient way to kill any werewolf who betrayed their pack, but the difference with mine was that they wouldn't allow me to die in it before pulling me out, bruised and badly wounded. In there, as you try to struggle out, you realize that your body is trapped by the weight of the consuming pain slicing through your skin, pressing down on your chest and making it hard to even breathe. And you start to feel yourself suffocating because each breath under the fluid was another form of torture as you end up allowing the chemical into your body. It was another full moon, 6 months after the last one, and I was going to face that anguish again. This cruel torture was suggested by the heartless pack Luna, a second-chance mate to the Alpha, who claimed it was the only way to render me weak and prevent me from using my vampire powers to bring destruction to the pack, and it hurts so much to see the alpha believe everything she says. I sat on the cold, hard ground of my small bedroom, knees pulled up to my chest, as I listened sadly to the cheering and happy chattering voices coming from the other side of the thin walls, along with the sounds of cutlery hitting against each other. The alpha, Luna, and betas were all eating, and I had to wait till they were done so I would scavenge on the leftovers like dog, that is, if there were any remains. But my greatest fear was having to face the wicked Luna while packing the plates after they are done eating. It was always her chance to maltreat me, always looking for a way to hurt me, which was something I found hard to understand because she wasn't even there when I transformed to a vampire on my birthday. I did no wrong to her particularly, yet she abhorred me deeply. Why does she hate me so much? A question I keep asking myself. It had been a year since the alpha found her as his second chance mate after he lost his first mate in a battle with the rogues, and I had suffered more terribly in her hand than I had in the hand of everyone for the last 2 years since. That horrible birthday of mine. I hissed as my stomach grumbled in hunger, tortured by the aroma of food from the dining room. I don't know why they had to give me a room close to the dining room. I guess it was another form of suffering, allowing me to wallow in the appetizing aroma of those dishes, of which I would barely have more than 3 spoonfuls. When are we meeting our mate? My inner wolf threw the question at me as if I were a seer. We are 19, and our scent is clear. When he comes nearby, he will find us. We will also get his alluring scent, and you know what that means. I smiled, leaning on those same fantasies that had only taunted me. It has passed the normal year 18 already, yet I haven't found him. For a year, since I turned 18, I had been daydreaming about the day I would meet my mate and how I would get overwhelmed by his manly pheromones, which would capture every part of my soul and pull us towards each other. How he would hold my hands, stare into my eyes passionately, and tell me my suffering is over. It is forbidden to stop mates from being together, so that means my mate would take me away from this hell. He would be my savior, and the man to bring light into my dark, lonely world. Anytime I thought of this, I would feel hope. I would feel more reason to stay alive and bear all the sufferings, hoping that soon it would all be over. But as the day went by, this hope grew bleak. Just then, my door was opened abruptly without a knock. I'm used to it already. A bodyguard peeked in with a grim face. "They are done eating," he said to me gruffly, and left almost immediately, as if my room was choking him to death. I took a deep breath and braced myself for whatever I would face when I stand before them. Even Sienna, my wolf, cuddled herself in anxiety. We both knew this was one of our worst moments. Slowly, I stepped out and headed straight to the dining room. As soon as I walked in, my presence ended all the conversation, laughter, and happiness that had filled the air, and I could see all the smiling faces turned to a serious frown, grimace, and gawp. They were still eating, and I had made a mistake of showing my face. I swallowed hard, the silence brooding fear in me as I tried to avoid their eyes, which were all peering disgustingly at me. I scanned through their plates, and the foods were still quite much than it always were, barely less than half. Are they not done eating? Why did the guard lie to me? "What are you doing here?" The alpha growled in a voice that instilled strong fear in me. I paused and looked up, his eyes making my legs shake. "Was told that." I stuttered, and before I could see it coming, the Luna picked a glass cup and sharply flung it against my head. I couldn't dodge it as the shattered glass cup left multiple cuts on my forehead, causing significant bleeding and immediate sharp pain. I swallowed hard, tears spilling down my eyes as I stared at the Luna with anger boiling in my heart. "Who told you we were done, dirty pig?" she yelled, her eyes flinting. A guard came and told me. That. She won't wait for me to explain anything as she jerked up and charged at me like a lunatic. She landed a hot slap across my face. I groaned in pain, trying not to cry. I hate crying in front of her, but the pain burned my cheek and forced tears down my eyes. She was wearing a ring, making the slap brush hard on my cheek. I sobbed bitterly, shielding my face with my arms. "So you barged in here to stop us from eating it all. What courage you suddenly got, you devil," she yelled furiously while I whimpered, wiping the blood dripping my face. Sometimes I wonder if she had other reasons for her resentment for me. "Laura, calm down and don't waste your strength on this pig." The beta snorted, and the alpha came over and wrapped his arm around her, patting her back gently as if she was the one in pain. "Don't stress yourself, my queen. The guards will punish her," he cooed, stroking her hair carefully as he led her back to her seat. "I hate seeing her face. I regret the fact that we can't kill her off," she whined, her face grimaced as she glared wickedly at me. "My dear, I regret it too, but we can ignore her and don't allow this riffraff to get to you. Soon, she will get tired of her life and kill herself. He coaxed, but Laura wasn't satisfied. Can't you banish her to the rogues' clan? She seethed, and my heart sank into my stomach as I shuddered in shock at what she just uttered. Even the Alpha and Beta were surprised to hear her say such a thing. Being banned was the worst thing that would happen to any wolf, as it meant death sentence. A lot of predators are out there to hunt you down. If you survive them, then you are still going to die of hunger, because no other pack will accept you and you will only wander for the rest of your life. Our pack are in enmity with the rogues, so the last thing they will do is accept me. Please, pardon me. I am very sorry for what I did. Please don't banish me. Please, I begged, falling to my knees. Please, please. I continued. Shut up already. The Beta, who was getting irked at my voice, shouted, stood abruptly and kicked my stomach. I fell heavily to the ground but stood quickly, wincing in pain as I covered my mouth to push back the loud cry struggling to burst out. My face was bleeding from the slight cut, and my stomach hurt so bad from his kick. But all that doesn't matter. What matters is my life. The Alpha loves the Luna so much and hardly says no to whatever they ask for. The dread of hearing him give an order for my banishment made my heart tug, and I couldn't stop pleading for mercy from the Luna. I hated myself for being this weak in front of the Luna, especially when she scorned and laughed mockingly at me, but I had no choice. Instead of banishing her, we should allow her to stay for a few years as our slave. My son and daughter might need her when they return, you know, the Alpha finally said to her, and I heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing him. She hesitated a bit before nodding and smiling back at him. Okay, you are right, she shrugged, and I quickly jumped to my feet, bowing continuously. Thank you. Thank you so much, I repeated as I ran back to my room, if it can be called a room because it looked more like a dungeon. It was really small and cramped, barely large enough to fit a twin-sized bed. The walls are peeling and discolored, and the carpet is all torn off. The mirror on the wall was hung by the Luna herself to make it easy for me to always see my miserable reflection every single day. According to her, I needed to see how I was growing lean and worn out, becoming a physical version of a poor madwoman, so I would consider killing myself. I don't know why she is so obsessed with my death. I was once a beautiful girl, envied by my friends and admired by a lot of guys in and out of school. I picked some clothes and began to dab my injured head, cleaning the blood in front of the mirror as I also stared at my reflection in the mirror, and it was hard to recognize myself. My curly golden hair, sparkling blue eyes, and radiant smile were gone. Now, my hair was shaggy, dull, and lifeless, and my eyes were sunken and tired. My face, which had always been graced with a pretty and contagious smile, had been replaced by a permanent frown. No more school, no friends, no family. Everything gone as I stayed locked up and lonely inside this building with eyes watching me like I was a monster. Just then, I began to hear quick footsteps stomping in the direction of my room, and I groaned, slumping in the bed tiredly. Who again? Just as expected, my door burst open, and the Luna stepped in with a smirk. She stood tall and elegant, smelling so nice and alluring, adorned with a gown of deep crimson, the rich fabric flowing elegantly around her as she moved, highlighting her slender figure and emphasizing her curves with her long, flowing hair cascading down her back in blonde waves, giving her a pretty innocent appearance. But her heart is the opposite, cold, ugly, dirty, and cruel. Good evening, Queen. I greeted nervously, wondering why she was here again. She quickly covered her nose as if I was stinking. Not all bodyguards you will listen to, especially those close to me. She snickered, then walked closer while I fumed silently. So she was the one who did that. Yes, ma'am, I mouthed, and she scoffed. You must be waiting for us to actually finish eating so you can go lick up our leftovers like a dog. She scorned, to save you the stress. We finished everything, so stop having hopes. Tears prickled my eyes, but I fought them back. Okay, I have heard you, ma'am, I replied breathlessly, fighting to push back the urge to grab her head and smash it on the mirror there. I wasn't the one who made your mother open her legs for vampires to gangbang her, so don't blame me, she whispered with a sardonic laugh, and it felt like my heart was stabbed. I began to sob silently, my gaze on the floor as I remembered the scene of the day my mother died. It was replaying in my head. Well, listen to me, dirty pig, she snapped, and I raised my face, looking at her and seeing that mockery face. I really wish I could get that outburst of vampire powers like that night of my birthday. I won't hesitate to devour her from limb to limb and suck her blood dry. But there was absolutely nothing I could do. Not when I can't even have a normal wolf ability. I was the weakest wolf. All strength destroyed with the wolfsbane and silver torture they inflict on me every month, adding that I haven't been able to shapeshift into my wolf yet. My stepchildren are returning tomorrow. A handsome and sexy guy and the most beautiful girl you will ever see. They decided to complete their final year here at this pack's best school. You must treat them like rare gem with total submission. Anything he asks of you, do it, she said in warning. Why do you care about them? They aren't your children and might end up treating you bad. I seethed, and she laughed in a sinister tone. You know nothing. Just shut up and do as I say, like the wimp you are. Listen, even if he asks for sex, don't dare make it a deal. A slave like you has no choice on who to touch her body and who not to. She spat shamelessly, and it was a miracle that I didn't break her nose with a heavy punch. If he tries raping me, it might just be another case of murder by me. I bawled, and she gave me a knock on the head so hard that I felt it in my brain. I groaned, my face red in anger, as I held my head tight while they ached really bad. Stop thinking highly of yourself. Be ready to face it all since you are wished to live. Suicide is the easiest way of escape, but you are being stubborn like your prostitute mother. She snorted, and I growled, my fists clenched tight as I raised them in the air, holding myself from striking her. One day, hit me. I can't wait, she taunted with a smug smile and chuckled wickedly before walking away, swaying her hips in pride as I fumed, wishing I could actually pounce on her, but I knew I would end up regretting. I slumped on the bed, and after almost an hour, my door was kicked open again, and another royal guard walked in, jolting me up as I hissed sadly at the fact that anyone could just barge into my room anytime and anyhow without knocking. Hey, bloodsucker, you ain't eating those leftovers, huh? You can go pack the plates then before the alpha notices they are still there since they finished eating. He scoffed, and I arched my brows in surprise. There are leftovers? They didn't finish it? I asked, standing to my feet as my stomach grumbled louder with a twinge that made me gasp as I swallowed hard to contain the pain. Does it mean that Laura lied to me? He snorted and headed out quickly, while I burst into a wild run to the dining room. Just as I pushed the door open, my jaw dropped as I saw the leftover food on the plates. It was packed together for me, but the Luna's personal maids was feeding it to dogs. Are you here for this? She asked as soon as she noticed me standing at the door, but my eyes were glued to the tongues of the dogs on the dishes, from the potatoes to the rice, vegetables, and meats. All that in their little portions could be enough to tame my hunger till the next day, adding that I needed to eat so I could bear the torture this night. If you're finally here to eat all these, I can stop the dogs from eating further and allow you to have the rest. She sniggered as she pushed more plates to the dogs, who hungrily pounced on them. It really hurt, but the last thing I could do was shed a single tear for this maid. The Luna sent you to do this, right? I bellowed, and she nodded with a lopsided smile. Yes, it's the best thing to do to a cursed girl like you. The dogs are better than you. She blurted, feeding more. How is it going having the Luna pee in your mouth and flog you every day like a donkey? I responded sardonically, laughing at her in the most mocking way. She was unaware that I had seen a few of how miserable her life was being the Luna's personal maid. She was more like a slave but had to keep it a secret and act like she was treated nicely. I didn't really know my words could hit her so hard as she flinched and stood in anger, her cheeks flushing red as tears glistened in her eyes. I am not a toy like you, bitchy vampire. She bawled, trying to cover up, but I laughed harder. You are really pathetic, having lost your freedom for the rest of your life. She told you to feed the dogs with this, and you think it's the right time to deride me to make yourself feel better. Try getting a life where you aren't wrapped around someone's finger, receiving all slaps, knocks, and spits on your face, I retorted scornfully. She couldn't bear it anymore and rushed at me with an attempt to slap my left cheek, but she was too slow. I was able to dodge it so easily, and unfortunately for her, she had little or no balance. The next minute, she had already toppled over the table, sprawling a few of the ceramic jars and teacups on it. They fell and shattered on the floor. You see what you have caused, you evil girl, she cried out, but I only used the remaining strength to give her another shot of laughter before walking away and jamming the door. My vision was becoming blurry, and my brain was hazy from stressing out my fatigued body as I headed back to my room. The starvation really hit me hard. I almost fell. I went back in and lay on my bed in hunger, but suddenly IQ felt the urge to sneak out and wander into the woods, then visit my favorite river, where I spent most of my time back then. Sneaking out was something I hadn't thought of before because I was really scared, and I really can't tell why it crept into my mind and was already bubbling inside me. the hunger for food suddenly gone and replaced with this desire to see the outside world once again. Yes, let's sneak outside, please. It has been years. I can't wait any longer. My wolf, Sienna, howled and kicked at me with urgency, as if she would die if I changed my mind. What if we get caught? I sighed. What if we don't get caught? She replied almost immediately, kicking me gently again. It's risky, especially with the kind of hatred everyone has for us. Life is all about risk, she shouted, and I couldn't hold my laughter. We will be whipped 20 times for this. That's if they even find out. And tonight, we already have excruciating torture waiting for us. Let's just have this moment to savor, she whined, and I nodded. But, no buts. We haven't attempted to sneak out before. They won't expect this, and we won't take long before returning. No one really cares about us and won't notice we are out for these few minutes. Remember how busy they all are in preparation of the full moon festival tonight. She coaxed in enthusiasm, as if there were something special she kept outside. All right, let's get dressed up, I chirped, and she leaped in excitement, pulling my legs forward so much that I almost fell. Do you have a wolf boyfriend out there that I don't know about? You're too eager, I tittered as I began to search for my hooded long-sleeved jacket, which could hide my face a little. I think we might find our mate outside, my wolf muttered, forcing a surprised look all over my face as I raised my brows at her. Really? I gasped, and she nodded like a baby. My lips quirked in a lopsided smile. Since he has refused to meet us all these years, let's go hunting for him then. I winked and giggled. I got dressed up in my black hood, which I wore over my favorite round neckline gown that stopped right above my knees. It was my only gown without any torn parts but was quite oversized around the chest region, so the long jacket will do well to cover that. I had no good clothes anymore, as they had been either burned or thrown away by the Luna. Just as I opened the door of my room, fear drifted in. The thought of being caught filled the back of my head, and the terror of what would happen next loomed around me like a cloud of fog. I stepped out and shut the door, swallowing the lumps in my throat as I gave rapt attention to my surroundings. I was going to sneak out through the backyard, which has no bodyguards since it was abandoned. I peeked around the corner, checking to make sure the coast was clear. The hallway was silent and empty, but I knew better than to let my guard down. I had to be careful and stealthy if I was going to make it out of this building undetected. With each step, I moved cautiously, trying my best to remain as silent as possible. My mind raced, thinking of all the worst-case scenarios being caught and the consequences that would follow. Just as I climbed down the stairs to the second floor, heading for the next staircase, which would take me to the first floor that leads to the back door, I realized I was stupid to make this decision. I stood frozen in place at the top of the steps, my heart pounding in my chest. Every nerve in my body was on edge, and I could feel sweat trickling down my back. Up to 3 hefty men were there, dressed in their black suits and trousers with dark glasses. I had seen them in action before, so ruthless and unforgiving. Hey, someone called out from behind, and I almost slumped, my heart almost falling out as I cringed and gasped in fright. I turned and saw that it was the Luna's personal maid again. What are you doing here dressing like that? You're feeling cold, suddenly? She gave me a suspicious look, grazing her eyes up and down my body. Yes, I am feeling cold. Do you have any problem with that? And what's up with those ceramic jar and cups you broke? I smirked, and she hissed sadly. You can keep a secret, can't you? She grumbled, sneering at me. Yes, but not a secret from my enemy. I'm waiting for the Alpha and Luna to be done with their endless meeting, so I'll report you. I snickered, and she grunted in frustration. Please, the Luna dislikes me so much and will really beat me harder for this. I was looking for you to apologize and beg you to keep it a secret, please. She stuttered, flustered and hopeless. I was never going to agree at first, but I needed her help now if I wanted to leave here. No long talks. Get me out of here, I said, smiling. She gasped in surprise, giving me the "you are joking" stare. You're trying to run? We know that isn't possible. You can't go anywhere unnoticed, and the boundary will detect. I'm not running, Parrot. Let me just enjoy a few moments of freedom out there. I cut in. It's your choice, though. Are you helping me or not? I added, and she nodded immediately. But. I hushed her. I don't trust you, she whined. Are you such a dumbass? What do I need your trust for? Help me out and I keep my mouth shut, or the reverse be the case. I I rolled my eyes and was about to head back when she grabbed my hand. "I'll help you, but please don't snitch on me. First, remove that jacket and hand it to me because it makes you suspicious. We are walking out like normal girls on duty. Since you're with me, they won't suspect you. I'll lead you to the backyard, and from there, you leave. I hope you're ready for whatever consequences you." "Stop talking and have it, please." I chirped happily and stuffed the hood jacket in her hand, not interested in hearing whatever she was saying. She folded the cloth in her arms and then motioned for me to follow her. And just as she had foretold, the bodyguards only gave us a little glance and looked away when they saw her. She actually led me smoothly to the back door, and I was just trying so hard to push back the grins that threatened to spread all over my face. My heart was thumping in so much joy, the kind I had never felt since my mother died. It was like a wave coursing through my entire being. "Take your hoodie. You can go. And make sure you come back earlier and unnoticed. Or else, you will have yourself to blame for what comes next," she warned and flung the jacket at me before walking away almost immediately. I didn't think twice before dashing out wildly like a goat that had been tethered all its life and was finally set free. "Sienna, we are out! We are outside, away from that shithole!" I screamed inwardly to my wolf, running as fast as my legs could carry me, tears of joy splattering over my face as I laughed cheerfully with my wolf, who seemed to be even happier than I was as it leaped and backflipped inside me with howls that had so much joy. "Yes, yes, baby, we did it. Just run faster to the village square, over to the forest, woods, rivers, and garden. We have a limited time, but we will enjoy it to the fullest," she chirped, laughing with true happiness, such which she had never had before. Since she appeared inside me as my wolf when I turned 18th birthday, life has never been pleasant for her. She knew we were doomed for having the vampire gene, and I was really surprised she didn't take her life and leave me wolfless. She decided to actually stand by me and be my only companion, even when it meant I might never be able to shift into her form to let her enjoy life like other wolves like her. "Sienna, I'm sorry I can't shift to your form." I apologized, pitying her, but it seemed she had gotten really used to her fate and wasn't troubled about that. "Are you going to lament that forever, especially now? You're ruining this amazing moment." "No time to cry, baby." She cackled and added more of her little strength to my feet so I could run faster. Smiles were all over my face. I was grinning from ear to ear. The tears of joy wouldn't just stop as I really realized how lucky I was to have such a wolf who loves and brightens my mood, especially when she calls me baby. Sounds so cheeky and sweet. The cool breeze of the evening hit my skin and sparked shivers all over my body, sending sensations of warmth throughout my entire being. This was the moment we were waiting for, dreaming all day and night to experience it in reality. It felt completely surreal that at some point I thought it wasn't happening for real. As I bolted my way through with all the speed I had, I began to hear noises and different voices from afar, which simply meant I was close to the village square already. "We are close." Sienna breathed, her excitement vivid in every word she spoke. And just in a few minutes, I bumped out into the square, and right in my eyes was the pack I was once counted among. Ranging from children, boys and girls to the adults, almost all were outside in preparation for the full moon festival. I could see groups of girls setting up for a run through the woods. The boys were also grouped together to make theirs alongside the ladies. It was fun for both of them competing to be the fastest and falling in love all along. When my life was still normal, I had always admired and dreamed of this evening run, enjoying how the males linked up with each of the girls the moment they all speed off at the same time. Friends are made, bonds are created, and mates find themselves in the thrilling sparks of connections with scent and eye contacts. I looked forward to the day of my first shift when I turned 16, so I could join someday. But here I was, 19 years old, with no idea how it feels to shift into my wolf. I felt emotional as I saw the happy smiles on everyone's faces. Some ladies speaking with the handsome guys all had their cheeks flushed pink as they laughed and blushed. It was a peaceful and amazing sight, and I could only walk and wonder when I would have that chance to live a normal life of harmony and love again. "Hey, don't you have any friend? Are you shy?" a guy said to me from behind, and I only shook my head without sparing a glance at him. I didn't hear his voice again, so I turned and saw he had already gone back to his group of friends. The whistle blew, and the wild run began. Almost everyone in the square joined, including the mated adults, who do it just to refresh their memories of the past. To avoid suspicion, I had dashed into the woods beforehand, running on foot. I hid behind a big tree when all the pack of wolves sprinted into the forest with full speed, their howls echoing through the dimly lit, silent environment, with crickets and birds chirping and singing in their own tunes. They all ran past me, and I stayed hidden till their howls grew quieter and faded. I jumped out of my hiding place and began my solo run on foot. Hey here we come. My inner wolf's cheeky voice rang in my ears as I jumped, whirled, laid flat on the grass ground and strolled in pleasure and enjoyment as the breeze slapped my skin harder. I wish this will be forever. I smiled, taking a full breath of the warm air as they brushed against my skin. I stared up at the sky, which was almost covered with the big branches of trees, and I could see the sun setting, leaving the sky painted with hues of orange and pink. It was signaling the end of another day and the beginning of the night, which was to be the best moment for every wolf but a dreadful one for me, as it was the full moon festival when I would be tortured in the wolfsbane and silver mixture. The sound of crickets and chirping birds filled the air, creating a symphony of natural music. I took a deep breath of the scent of the blooming flowers that lined among the trees and shrubs, pushing back that scary thought of what I would face at the full moon festival. I shouldn't ruin the moment. Let us go to our favorite river. It must be missing us. Remember, no one knows about that particular river. We found it ourselves. My wolf shrieked, and I zoomed off with no hesitation, throwing my head back in unrestrained laughter with my wolf. After skidding through the bushy and thorny path, I finally got there. We have reached. My voice cut short, shocked and afraid as I saw a man sitting on the same rock which was my favorite position. He was backing me, and both of his legs were dipped inside the rippling water. His eyes were fixed on the gentle flow, and he seemed so lost in its mesmerizing rhythm that he didn't notice my presence. But what stunned me most was the fact that someone else had found this river too. I never thought of that because it wasn't an easy road to get here. You must get prickled and stung by thorns because the path had been deserted and covered with large shrubs. I think we should leave now that he hasn't noticed us. He must be one of our pack members, and once he sees me, he will report immediately. I whispered to Sienna, my wolf. But I realized she wasn't listening to me. Her eyes were glued to the guy, and something seemed to be brooding inside her. Why are you staring at him like that? I asked. And the next minute, she pulled my legs forward. What are you doing? I mouthed. He isn't a werewolf. She muttered under her breath, and I gasped loudly, covering my mouth as I realized she wasn't lying after sniffing at him. He doesn't have our scent, but the mild smell he was emitting was very familiar to me. He pulled out his legs from the water and stood tall on the rock in his towering height, his bare back studded with strong muscles. Just then, while I was still standing there watching him, he suddenly steered to my direction, and like a flash of light, he was already in front of me, close enough to make me feel his breath fanning my face. I was dazzled and my mouth went agape as I finally saw his face. The face, like a Greek god, so perfect that it took my breath away. His eyes were so beautiful, a pair of piercing green eyes that were like rare gems and seemed like they were seeing through me. He has a fair, porcelain skin, and 6'3" tall as he towered over my small, petite 5'2" figure, with those shirtless broad shoulders and muscular chest that gave him a real domineering and masculine figure. His wet, dark hair was slicked back, with strands clinging to his scalp. Beads of water hung from the tips of his hair, reflecting light and adding a touch of sheen. His eyebrows were raised, and his eyelashes were damp, making his eyes appear brighter and more vibrant. I was lost, not scared at all, but instead, I was drowning in admiration and the overwhelming feeling of something I couldn't understand. This man was the most handsome man I had ever seen, and his presence around me was taking over my mind and igniting a sudden rush of warmth that spread from my chest to every part of my skin. My heart was beating louder, and I knew it was beating for this stranger that I know nothing about. The most shocking part was that he had no mate sent to tell me he was mine, but both of us were just frozen, gazing at each other. His chiseled jawline looked like it had been carefully sculpted, and his full pink lips, slightly parted, looked like they were waiting to be kissed. I was completely smitten, and my heart was fluttering in a way it had never done before, especially with the way his hypnotic eyes rested on mine. "You are not going to say anything?" he asked with a quizzical look, his voice deep and smooth, so smooth that I felt like he were speaking into my soul. I gasped and smiled brightly. But he didn't even return the smile and instead let out a deep frown. "What do you want me to say, Mr. Handsome?" I beamed, feeling the rush up my cheeks. "I am sure they are like tomatoes right now." "What are you doing here?" "Leave. I want to stay alone," he rasped, but I stepped closer to him, my eyes never leaving him. I really love how his eyeballs flinched and flickered brightly from side to side as if there were lights in them. Isn't it surprising that you didn't know who I am? Every member of this pack knows me. I smirked and saw his brows furrow together as he cleared his throat and gave me a long stare. Who says I don't know you? I just don't want to. Shh. I placed my index finger on his lips, and he let out a growl, his frown deepening as he quickly slapped my hand away. Don't touch me, he warned and began to walk to the rock where his shirt was lying. You are not one of us. I spilled as he was about to pick up his shirt. He paused abruptly after what I uttered, then made a quick turn to face me. Are you stupid? What do you mean? He sneered, gritting his teeth as those eyes flint in anger. Werewolves have a single way of beckoning all the warriors and hunters when they find your kind in our land, I said curtly, and his eyes widened. He got really tensed, but he quickly regained his composure and burst into laughter. Okay. I must say this is the sexiest man on earth right now. Why does his laugh sound so harmonious and melodious? The way his white set of teeth gleamed would lure you into smiling sheepishly without realizing it. Little girl, it's my fault that I didn't realize earlier that you have a mental issue. There is no way another kind of person who isn't a werewolf would be able to enter this pack. Just do whatever you came here to do and get lost. You are so annoying, he scoffed, let out a hiss, and began to put on his shirt in a gentle and noble manner, as if he were a king or prince. His scent wasn't of the werewolf, but the familiar scent he got was something my brain couldn't remember where I first smelled it. The more I rack my brain for an answer, the more blank it becomes. How did you find out about this river? It had been my favorite place till my life was destroyed by the vampires, I muttered sadly. What, your life was destroyed by the vampires? How? Are you among those who blame the vampires for every misfortune that befalls them? He huffed at me, and as soon as I looked at him, I saw the sheer annoyance in his eyes. It was then that everything clicked into place in my head in a snap, sending cold chills down my spine. I instantly recalled where I had come across his kind of smell before, and that made my eyes widen as I screamed, jumping up to my feet and backing away from him as terror rushed through me like an electric current. That moment when I shifted into a vampire instead of my wolf, his kind of smell was what filled the room and swirled around me. Oh no. What is it? He asked as he buttoned his shirt. You are a vampire. You are one of them. You all destroyed my life, and now you're here again in our pack. What do you guys want? Allow us to live in peace, I shrieked, tears brimming in my eyes as I began to take steps backward, pain coursing through my heart as the scene of my mother's death played in my head again and again, forcing my lips to tremble as I bit them to push back the outburst of cry that threatened to break out. His eyes dilated, and there was a huge surprise on his face as he peered at me quizzically. Hey, how did you? Hey, come back here and tell me how you could tell who I was. He huffed at me in an angry voice, taking quick steps forward while I retreated hastily, my legs wavering in dread as I imagined the worst. I can smell your vampire scent. Just tell me why you're here. To spy on us? Or to do the same thing that was done to my mother? I whimpered, shaking my head, as I kept moving backward fast without turning. I was scared that he would kill me once I moved my eyes away from him. How can you perceive my scent? It is hidden with. He paused, talking as I tripped on a rock and fell heavily on my buttocks and hurried to help me up, but I didn't stop moving away from him as I sprawled, glancing through for a quick exit as more fear coursed through me. If I had known he was a vampire, I would have run away from him the moment I saw him. I don't know why I ever admired this devil in the first place. He must be here to do evil. Vampires are the cruelest and most despicable creatures ever, and he isn't different from them. As he drew closer to me, I shouted, "Stay away! Don't touch me! Don't! Please don't hurt me, or do to me the same thing your people did to my mother. I beg you. I'm just an innocent girl who doesn't even have a life of her own." I cried in panic. My heart was racing as I crossed my legs and wrapped my hands over my chest, fear in my eyes, especially when he stood tall over me as I lay helplessly on the ground. My mother didn't say anything about how she ended up having a baby for a vampire, but the more I think about it, the more it becomes clear how everything must have occurred. It can't be far away from rape. One of them must have raped her, and she had no other choice but to keep it a secret and suffer from the trauma alone. That was the only explanation for a mated wolf like her to have a baby for someone else, unbelievably. A vampire. What are you saying, little girl? He squatted down as he asked, his voice appearing calm and soft, and those eyes having warmth in them, but I won't fall for the trap. He lent his hand to lift me up, but the fear of who he was didn't allow me to take it. I couldn't even look at his face anymore. Please allow me to go. I pleaded in tears that wouldn't stop pouring down my eyes like rivers. My hands were trembling as I feared the danger that was about to eat me up. He took back his hand and stood up. I am not holding you. The exit is that way. Why lay there? Just stand up and leave. I am not going to hurt you. He shrugged, a trace of sadness glinting in his eyes as he turned his back on me. Really? What is going on? I mused in surprise, watching him take his eyes away from me. I was wondering if I was dreaming, because this is far different from what vampires do to werewolves. Did he mean what he just said? That I should go away without any harm from a vicious vampire like him? Slowly, I stood up, staring intently at him in readiness to dodge any of his sudden attacks that I still believed would come. Vampires are very cunning and ruthless, and werewolves are one of those that they enjoy bullying with their special abilities. Even when I began to walk away, he didn't come for me, and he didn't even turn to glance at me. I don't know why I felt some kind of guilt for treating him like a monster when he meant no harm. But those are my silly thoughts. Vampires are evil, and the best thing for me to do now is leave this place as fast as I can. There she is. A sudden voice burst loudly from a corner of the bush before I could dash off, and I quickly swirled to the corner where the voice came from. My heart sank into my belly as 3 men jumped out of 3 different corners of the bush, stalking toward me with a smirk and resentment flinting in their eyes as they peered at my face, which wasn't covered anymore. One of them was that guy who met with me in the village square. I was wrong to think he didn't suspect me. Now he had seen my uncovered face. I knew there was something fishy about you back then. So you were Celine and had run away from the royal pack where you were a slave, huh? Today is your unlucky day, little devil, he sniggered, smugness plastered on his face, and the other guys smirked as they drew closer. Fear gripped me, and I felt my stomach churn at the men who had dangerous looks on their faces. I quickly turned to where the vampire was standing, and no one was there anymore. He was gone. Please, let me go back. I just wanted to taste freedom a little bit. I was about to even return before you all came. I begged in tears, praying they would have a little mercy. If they report me to the Alpha and Luna, I would be severely punished, and including the torture of tonight, I don't think I would be able to heal for several months. The first and most important rule of the Alpha to me was to never leave the house. Since he believed I was a curse and a disaster to the pack, I wasn't to be allowed outside before I would bring calamities to them. My plan was to sneak back before nightfall from the back door, unnoticed since I had never attempted to leave the house. They wouldn't think I did that, but now my plan had fallen apart. We are carrying you now to the Alpha and enjoying the show of you being beaten mercilessly. Please, remember I was one of you. I have not changed. I'm still a werewolf. Don't treat me like this, please. I pleaded, going down to my knees, and I saw how each of them ran their tongues through their lips, their eyes flashing a glint of lust as they gazed at my breasts. We were joking. We didn't plan to take you to the Alpha, but that's only if you can take us all. I heard the one with raven hair say this to me with a smirk as he rubbed his hand on the bulge around his crotch. The other snickered too, and nodded as I saw them unbuckling their belts. My eyes almost popped out. What are you all doing? Have you gone mad? I shouted, leaping to my feet. Huh? Stop acting timid like you don't know what we need. Hey girl, you've been stuck in that house. We know you need it. So just take it happily and enjoy the ride. The blonde-haired guy taunted me, and I felt so irritated. You perverts should get the fuck out of my face. You can take me to the Alpha, but none of you are allowed to touch me. Fuck you, I bawled, breathing heavily as rage and disgust bubbled in my chest. At that moment, I wished I had my vampire powers. I wouldn't hesitate to pluck out their hearts one after the other. We aren't taking you to any Alpha. You don't have any choice but to do what we want, slave. They all laughed and began to close up on me. You all want to rape me? I gasped in terror as my legs shivered and my heart pounded harder in my chest. You should thank us for volunteering to give you this wonderful ride. I was laughed at again, and before I could think of anything to do, one of them swept me off my feet, and I landed heavily on my back, hitting my head on a rock. That sent a sharp pain through my skull, which almost made me pass out as my entire body became weak and my vision blurred. The mockery laughter increased in my head as I began to feel their hands roaming over my breasts, fondling them. One of them spat in my face, and another slipped his hand beneath my gown, rubbing my thighs up to my groin. My brain was in a haze, and hitting my head on the rock really sapped the remaining strength left in me. Unable to shift and having to go through the wolfsbane and silver torture, every full moon succeeded in turning me into a puppet, a pup who can't even make the slightest struggle to save herself from any attack or danger. Please, don't do this to me. Please. My voice was barely audible as they tore off the hoodie jacket I wore. It wasn't hard since the cloth was already worn out and very old. The guy's hand under my leg was already rubbing his disgusting finger on my private part with my pants still on. The cool breeze hit my bare body as they pulled my oversized gown up to reveal both my pants and my naked breasts. I wasn't wearing a bra. Wow, the slave got banging body. Let's have fun. Their voice rang in my head. My nipples played with me, and another spit splattered on my face. I screamed, petrified at what was about to happen to me, shutting my eyes tight as tears streamed down profusely. Shut up, he barked at me with a follow-up slap that numbed me. Fingers clutched the sides of my panties, and it was about to be pulled down when a sharp, sickening bone crack filled the air, followed by a blood-curdling scream from the men. Instead of my panties being slid down, I felt my gown pulled back, covering my body. There were no words spoken, just bones breaking and the slashing of skins with petrifying death screams. When it all died down, I opened my eyes, and there the vampire was squatting in front of me, staring closely at my face with an expression that beheld affection. Or was it my head playing tricks on me? Are you okay? He asked softly, wiping the side of his mouth that had blood spilled on it. I could catch a glimpse of his long, sharp fangs. My eyes drifted away from him as I sat up and looked around. Huh, I exclaimed, shuddering at the shredded body parts scattered around. The men were all dead and unrecognizable, as they were cut from limb to limb in the most gory way I had ever imagined. I backed away and gasped, slapping my palm over my lips. You did all this? I muttered, blinking rapidly as my stomach churned at the eyes' sore sight. He only let out a shrug and went over to the river, where he washed his hands and face before returning to me. Are you all right? He asked again, since I didn't give him a reply the first time he asked. You saved me, I murmured, breathing shakily as I scrutinized him, not knowing what to think of him. Maybe we aren't as bad as you think. He shrugged and began to walk away. Thank you so much, I shouted, and he paused, spun, and began to walk back to me. I wasn't scared this time. When he got close, he whispered, Hurry back before the alpha notices you snuck out. After saying that, he sped off like a wind into the forest, skidding and swaying from branch to branch, vanishing from my eyes before I could say anything. I stood there for some minutes, pondering what just happened with my eyes fixed on the exact spot he left from. I could still feel and hear the thumping of my heart, still accelerating real quick, as the image of his face was all that filled my mind like a dark cloud before rainfall. This was the first time I met a vampire, and it was still so hard to accept that he was one of them. Why was he tender to me? Why didn't he harm me or even allow anyone to hurt me? The young man literally saved me from being raped by those disgusting perverts. How possible is it that a vampire, our biggest enemy and rival, was the one who rescued me from my own people who tried to harm me? This is really ridiculous and doesn't seem real. The sun had set, and night was fast approaching. I mean, it was already dark, and if I don't get home in less than a minute, it is very likely that my absence will be noticed because once night falls, the next thing is to take me to the dungeon, where I will stay and await the taming torture. It is truly disheartening and unfair that I was going through such pain to be tamed when I wasn't a monster that kills people. Maybe I was, actually. After what I did on my birthday, I can't tell who I was or what I could be capable of doing in the future. I was even afraid of myself, and all the blame goes to the vampire clan that destroyed my mother. Except that man who saved us. My wolf muttered under her breath, and I swallowed hard, wondering if he was the only one different, or if it could even be that he had evil thoughts. Celine, can we leave here now? It is getting darker, she exclaimed, and with all my strength and speed, I bolted off, jumping over the dead, mangled bodies of those boys that almost raped me. Gosh, their deaths weren't any better. That vampire really tore them apart mercilessly. I put my hood over my head and ran back without caring for anything else. There were no excuses to give that would save me from a severe punishment if the Alpha realized that I broke his rule, and it would get worse when they found out about the dead bodies of these boys, which show they were killed by a vampire. Since I was the only one with a vampire gene, I would instantly be the killer. Take caution. We are close to where the few guards are. If you keep running like this, we will be noticed, my wolf warned in fright. But the urge to get back into the pack house was so strong, and the adrenaline rushing through my veins wouldn't allow me to slow down even a little bit. Celine, you are endangering our... Her voice choked in her throat as we both caught sight of the bodyguards who were guarding the emergency path. We were scared that they would sense our movement and get hold of us, but what we saw was shocking. 5 of them were lying dead on the ground in the pool of their blood, their chests seared open as blood gushed, forming a crimson ground around them. It gave us a free pass to the back door, where we would sneak back in, but I couldn't get that image out of my head. There was only one person who could do that, and that was the vampire I met. Did he kill those guards for me? What the hell is going on? Celine, he killed them so they wouldn't catch us. He did it. My wolf shrieked in a mix of happiness and confusion, which was how I felt too. It was really unbelievable. But what we were concerned about was going unnoticed until we got into our room, and, luckily, the moon goddess decided to intervene. No one saw us. Jaden's point of view. Where had you been, buddy? My best friend Jake's voice slipped into my lost world, startling me back to reality. Huh? I swiveled my head around to face him, blinking as his tall and muscular body, like mine, walked closer to me, his dirty brown tousled hair bouncing at each step as his hazel eyes filled with confusion peered into mine. He was my only friend since childhood. We met in kindergarten, and he was closest to me. The guy to be my right-hand man when I sit on that throne in replacement of my father. His parents were warriors until they died 4 years ago. Since he was my only friend, my parents took him in to stay in the royal castle. I knew I was in for questions after keeping him worried by staying so long in the enemy's land. The moment I walked through the gate into this place, I knew everyone must have been really troubled about where I had been. The bodyguards were scanning me with their eyes, but none had the courage to ask me anything. And that fear that brings silence has been a lifesaver to many because I have this anger issue I'm fighting to control. Bro, you stayed back in that pack for up to 3 hours. What have you been doing since we left? You said you would leave soonest after enjoying the so-called beautiful river. He frowned, his eyes trailing my body yet again to check if I was really fine without any scratches. I decided to stay longer. Don't I have the right to do what I want? Or are you going to start questioning me? I raised my brows, pursing my lips as I dipped both hands inside my pockets. You left everyone worried. We thought something bad had happened, and even your father had arranged for our warriors to attack. As you can see, I'm back and fine. Go tell that old man to stop treating me like a daddy boy. I'm not a kid that can get trapped or kidnapped by those weak, disgusting werewolves. I snapped curtly and was about to head to the porch when he called me back. Jaden, we are friends, right? I understand how cold and reserved you have been since that trauma happened. You've faced a lot that only the strong can survive, and that's why I'm here, to support you and… Hey, you think I need support too? You, like others, think I'm still weak despite my unimaginable strengths and powerful abilities? I chuckled, spinning to face him. Tell me what happened in the wolf pack. Why did you stay this long? What was holding you there? We all know that you hate your father for forcing you to join us and spying on them. Jaden, you hate going to the werewolf pack, but today you… Can't I choose to change anytime I want? Bro, I decided to stay longer today. Besides, no one can recognize me there by scent or appearance. I'm just like a normal being when around those wolves, I interrupted sharply. But just as I spoke those words, I remembered clearly that I was lying this time. For real, there was someone there who could recognize me with my scent even when they were hidden from the wolves' senses with magic. That strange wolf girl who appeared from nowhere. I don't even know how she traced that abandoned river. She was able to fish out my vampire scent so easily. Gosh, I don't want to think about her. Jaden! Jake's voice called out again, and I flinched the second time, returning to reality like someone who had been in a trance. Now you're lost again. Is there something you're hiding? He queried, placing his hand on my left shoulder. What do you think I could be hiding? I smiled, and he smiled back. Now you are back with those tricky smiles. Who did you meet at that river? He asked, and I found myself shuddering as I pulled back a bit, squinting my eyes at him as I tried to find out if there was something he already knew. Well, I met some werewolves, and guess what? Their bodies are in 100 pieces now, adding manure to the soil. I laughed, and he joined, patting my shoulder. So what caused their death? You are cruel and heartless, but you don't kill anyone without a reason, he asked amidst laughter, and I felt like punching him in the face at that moment. I think I have to start staying away from you. I sighed, shaking my head sideways as I watched the guy who had studied me intently like a course in school. I can easily hide secrets from anyone in this world, but not this guy here. We couldn't stay away from each other for almost 20 years, so you have no place to run to. What was your reason for killing those werewolves? It should be a tangible reason because we aren't ready to go to war yet, so we can't go on killing their members for nothing," he said, his voice barely above whispers as he drew his lips close to my face. I didn't kill them for nothing. Those assholes were rapists. My hands balled into fists, and my face felt hot with rage. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing inside me as those words burst out of my mouth. I didn't realize my voice rose in volume and I was yelling, feeling the pent-up energy coursing through my body, making my movements jerky and agitated. I could feel the veins on my neck bulging as I struggled to contain my anger, my eyes burning with fury. The scene was replaying in my head, and I could hear all the "shh" they said to her while attempting to rape her. She warned them not to touch her, begging helplessly, yet those morons swept her off her feet and were actually going to force themselves on her. If I hadn't stayed back, they were going to rape such an innocent girl. I heard them call her a slave while she said something about being a werewolf like them. She told them she was only out to taste a little freedom, and that really touched my heart. Instead of pitying her, those men were going to take advantage of her pathetic condition to rape her. Gosh. Wow, 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 now I see, Jake hollered, clapping and grinning from ear to ear. What? I grimaced and he pulled me into a hug immediately. Listen, I don't care whether she is a werewolf or a vampire. Love can snatch our hearts anywhere and with anyone. Don't stress yourself. Go for her. Make her yours.